Hey guys, this is Zach with IT Career Questions, and today I'm really excited because I have Ronnie with IT Pro TV, and he's going to answer some questions for us. So, without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Ronnie, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself.
Sure thing. As I take a look at the idea of getting into the IT industry, for me, it was a career change. So I was able to actually say that at that point in my life, I needed to make a change. I was doing diesel mechanic off of a service truck. At that point, I had actually already transitioned from another career, which was pastoring in small churches in the Southeast. And when I first started getting into it, it was into the diesel mechanicing field. I had already been doing some on the side already, just helping out to bolster the income as a pastor at a small church. But then when I got into it full time, it was really a great time to be in that, just because it was, a lot of that was where I was able to get onto that service truck, and we were always busy. So it was great. And then when Hurricane Katrina came around, my boss did like everybody else did, which was, we're going to make tons of money out there becoming somebody that can keep equipment running. And when he first started, I was like, oh, that's great. Here it is. We're about to hit the big time. And what ended up happening is he kind of said these unusual words of, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be gone from your family for about a year. And that's when I had to kind of take a serious look back and go, whoa, I couldn't do that. I had a 3-year-old daughter. We had just moved back into Florida. And so at that point, I had to make a decision of saying, look, I need to start doing some changes. Well, the great thing is during my days in college, I had already been working with computers a bit, had already been doing some just kind of, PC repairs for other people and people bringing computers in. So I already took to the field naturally. And then once I got in there, I ended up getting hired at a training company. And then from that point on, just continued to develop my career and do some contract work that's been out there, as well as just kind of work with the company and kind of learn their network and just started developing it that way. So it's been really a great transition because I really did finally kind of take to a duck-like water in which this field felt natural for everything else I had been doing. Not that I couldn't do the other things, because I did them for a while, but this is probably the most natural fit for me. I was able to help people. I was able to do something that I liked at the same time. So for me, for the past 15 years or so, it's pretty much been like that, where I've been really blessed in that fact that I'm able to do stuff that I love and help people, which is kind of the combination of the best of both worlds for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, and that's why I do what I do, because I love to help people.
Right.
Helping people is, that's worth more than money sometimes, in my opinion. I really love that, and I think that really shows in what you guys do over there at IT Pro TV. You can just see it in the way that you guys present your material and content and everything like that. And I know when I came down last year, I think everybody was so welcoming and warming to me, and it was honestly the best experience I think I've ever had, kind of going into an environment like that. So it was really cool. So I think you guys all have that family, kind of feel to it. And Cherokee said it in the last interview too. So I know, I appreciate it, and I think a lot of my viewers appreciate that too, because they come back to me and tell me all the time, "Hey Zach, IT Pro TV is great. Thank you so much." So, like I said, I appreciate you kind of giving me that background, because I think everybody kind of needs to hear that. Not everybody starts off in a path that they think, okay, I'm gonna work in IT. No, you could be doing exactly what you're doing. And I have people who are 40 years old who are working many different fields, and they're like, I just need something different, or I have to do something different now. So it's great that you kind of give that background. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? The very fact that, it's a lot of the things that we do at IT Pro TV that really convinced me that we were coming on board for the right thing when I got hired at IT Pro TV. In the fact that I wanted to take, like, when I had learned it from other instructors that I had, it's not that they were bad instructors. It's not that they weren't, they weren't all the best instructor I ever had. They weren't all the worst instructors I ever had. But I wanted to take what I had and to be able to say, look, here's what we want to do here at IT Pro TV, and we all talked about it and we agreed. We want to be the teacher that we wanted for ourselves. So I think all of us, when we have come from the backgrounds we have right here at IT Pro TV, besides a couple of people that really did kind of, start off as an IT professional, we all come into it from that change of the background. And so we all understand the struggles that people have when they first start to learn it, and that, they think it's so different. They think it can't be done. So I think we all carry that with us as we teach. We always want to make sure that you have a better understanding of it than just the fact that we're trying to shoot to you this tremendous amount of information that looks like it's a fire hose of information. We want you to have that background and that understanding. And instead of being limited to a particular period or like a 5-day class, we're actually now able to kind of give it to you in the format that we would like to give it to you. Mm-hmm. And that's been kind of the freedom of IT Pro TV has brought into my career, which I really do enjoy, because I think a lot of people have been helped by that. And I enjoy that, like what you were talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, that all shows too. So kind of with what you said like a couple seconds ago, but I want to ask a question based on that. But like if you're going to, give anybody advice who wanted to work in IT, doesn't matter what they're doing, what their path is, necessarily right this second, what advice would you give them,
The best advice that I can give you is to start actually making whatever you want to get into a hobby, whether it's reading an article a day or learning something about it every day, and you make it into a hobby and that becomes a passion for you, and it opens up opportunities. So if you find like there's a meetup of a group that's doing something like VMware, and you go, I don't know what that is. Well, go there and find out what it's about and see if that actually fits you. Or there's a Cisco group somewhere, or there's someone that's actually just working on hardware. Lend a hand and try and figure out what the issue is. For me, it was problem solving, right? It was the idea of finding the puzzle when I ended up with broken networks, when I ended up with broken machines. It's not that I didn't want to repair them for the customer, but I was more interested in figuring out why did it break in the first point, and that led me to actually doing more research, which then led me to a career in being able to go, all right, now I can take that and I can put it and apply it and see where it fits in. But I think it begins there. Okay, if you want to actually get into this, you start there, and then you start to find every opportunity you can to get into the field somehow, whether it's just lending a hand to a friend, offering it maybe for free to a church that may be out there that says, we need somebody to help wire our network and don't know what to do. Well, start researching that. And then from that point, you make connections that will maybe get you an entry-level job into it. And once you get to that point, then you're actually just learning, and you're now getting to play with equipment as well, which really does help kind of cement all the process together. But if you don't have that, it's really going to be hard for you to say, oh, I want a career in IT. I don't know what to do. Well, you have to start by learning it somehow, and at least start that way. And if of course, if you can find some training that you would like, make sure you actually get that training too.
Awesome. What certifications or degrees do you have?
Okay. Yeah. It's kind of funny. We were talking about degrees at some point this past week with a colleague, right here at IT Pro TV, where we were talking about, what's the chances here? And I started actually thinking about the people that I work with. Most of us have college degrees in something else besides IT. Mm-hmm. Okay. You end up going to college. You go, here's what my career is going to be. And you may even try that for a while, but you find out that it's not really that gave you what you're going to be doing now. So even though I have a career, I have a degree in theology. I know that's kind of funny, but I have a degree in theology. I found that my particular interest and other things, not that it lies away from theology, but it also included things like mechanics and, learning how engines work, diesel mechanicking, and then the networking side, figuring out how all that worked. Well, my degree is not in anything that's directly IT related. Now, does that hinder you to a point? Well, it doesn't give you all the theory and background, but it doesn't hinder you from working in the field, because you can learn that stuff as you work in the field. And then when you get into the field and you realize, here's what people are saying, let's get these types of certifications. So for me, I realized when I first started actually helping other people out, like here's what the certifications you need. You need to essentially have a union card, which is your A+, your CompTIA A+. And then once I got that, they're like, oh, you got to have Network Plus. So, I started doing the kind of foundational things. So I have those certifications like the CompTIA A+ and Network Plus, and then, of course, then Security Plus. Then we started looking into the realm of which I thought I was going to be actually doing, which was desktop support. This would have been back in the days of Windows XP, where I actually ended up earning the MCDST, which was the desktop support for Windows XP at that point, then MCSA for Server 2003, and continued on doing more of the client side things, because I never felt that I was the system administrator, but I was more of the desktop support level person that would go in and help somebody at their computer or be able to troubleshoot that issue and remove those and bring that out. But the more that I got pushed into that, the more that I started seeing the benefit of the server side of things. So that's when I started seeing more in the MCSA. And then there came a point, especially when I started teaching this stuff, there was a division of labor, because we can't be the jack of all trades as much as we'd like to be. It's like, Ronnie, we need somebody that will actually learn Cisco. So I ended up taking to Cisco, and I found out something. I like that a lot more. So that was kind of my passion, my specialty in what I actually end up doing. So I've got CCNAs, multiple CCNAs inside of the Cisco realm in that sense. And, so it's those types of things too. And then I've dabbled in project management. So you name it, I've kind of tried to be the jack of all trades, but you do find yourself kind of leaning to one area or another. So I've got certifications in multiple areas in that sense. I could tell you, and I'm not trying to brag here, there are some I've forgotten over time, and some of them, that lapsed that I didn't renew, and so, some of them I'm currently in the process of renewing because they're coming up on the end of life. So all those things are actually having to be redone again. But the idea of certifications is really a great validation of skill that you already have, and you end up learning more as you study for certifications. The key here, though, is not just to study for the exam, but is to learn the technology and then get the certification if you can. And it's great because a lot of times if you're already working in the industry, you can tell your boss and say, look, I really want to earn this certification. Can the company help me out? And most of them go, oh, yeah, sure, let's do it. And they'll even pay for the training a lot of times.
Yep, absolutely true. That is true. And you kind of touched right away on the degree side of things, because that's something that I tell my viewers all the time. I say it doesn't matter what degree that you have. If you guys want to work in IT, at that point it's going to matter what certifications you go out and get,
right,
and then what experience you go out and get to back up some of those certifications as well. And you can go out and you can work just about anywhere you want in IT. You're not limited. And I think that's one of the most fantastic things about this field is you're not really limited to one area. You're not bound just because you have a degree in one specific area, or just because you have one certification in one specific area. If you have the dedication and the knowledge and the I guess like perseverance even to go out and take more certs, you can absolutely do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? That, like what you said there, the certification track doesn't lead you to only be pigeonholed in one way. If you end up getting into a company just working, let's say as a desktop support technician, that's fine, but then you find an opening somewhere else in the company, and you go, hey, I want to try and apply for that. You go and talk to the person, like, oh yeah, anybody can actually apply. And then once you get there, you start actually focusing on that, and you'll end up learning just about everything. At a small shop, you become everything right away. Whether you think that, hey, I'm only certified as a desktop support technician, you'll be supporting their server, you'll be supporting their storage, you'll be supporting the networking side anyways. So you'll learn a little bit about each one of them. But with the certification, though, it really does make it as democratic as possible. And the very fact that if you want to switch over fields, nobody cares in that sense. But what they do want you to do, of course, at some point is to validate that, yes, we want you to actually work in this field. So get this certification that shows that you have the skill set that you need to be here. So you may even have that skill set without even knowing it. And that's what you find out sometimes, too, is that you end up having that skill set and you go, whoa, I didn't even know that I had that. And you took the certification exam. And you find out that because you've been working in the industry already, it's already there. But if you're still trying to build that knowledge, it's foundational and key that you at least get what we call entry-level certifications that will give you the foundational knowledge, which is kind of 30 to 60% of just about every other certification that you end up trying to get the majority of the time.
Right.
So it's really neat because you find out that there's specialized knowledge in some of these certifications, and they're really difficult, but there's a good chunk of the exam that's based on foundational networking knowledge or foundational computer knowledge. So it's not that you have to learn something totally brand new. You're building on skills that you already have, which has already come from previous study or working in the industry.
Right. And it's funny because, I tell everybody, that want to work in IT, start out at help desk because you're going to learn everything. You're literally going to get thrown into everything. And from there, you can probably pick and choose kind of where you want to go because you'll be thrown into so much stuff. And I've had a lot of people who, just leave comments and send me emails and stuff and say, I started out in help desk and I always thought that I wanted to be in networking. And once I got into help desk, I was like, wow, I really love like system administration more. So that's the path that I went. So it's really funny how just that one role, and everybody, I think, I think there's a little stigma on that role. People are like, no, I don't want to work help desk. That's the lowest role on the totem pole. But you get so much knowledge from that role that I feel like it's the most valuable role to start at.
No, there's no doubt in that sense, right? If you don't have any experience at all, this is the best place for you to get the experience because not only what you mentioned, the very fact that you get exposed to so much, but it shows that you also have interpersonal skills, which is really lacking in a lot of the places that you end up working. And I'm not trying to poke at any one company in particular, but once they get isolated in their roles, they rarely kind of interact. They only do what their things are. But as a desktop support technician, you're interacting with your customer or your end user, and then you're also interacting with the technical team a bit higher than you, on the totem pole of things in the way that they go. But then in between that, right, as you're actually sitting there doing that, you're building a skill set that they didn't know that you had, and you're getting so much exposure to the entire company that it's really going to help you out in the future as you continue to move on. So I've even known somebody that's been desktop support technician that ended up in a role very similar to what I did, which is to go into teaching. And it wasn't because they actually saw any real particular skill set as far as being the best in what they did, but it's just the very fact that they could communicate the basic skills that they needed as a corporate trainer. And that's the level that they ended up doing, is because, no, that person can interact, he can communicate what he needs to. And that's what ends up happening, is that people will notice you and you'll get more opportunities because now you're exposed to everything within that company. So never turn down an opportunity if you're waiting for that perfect job because you say, oh, I have a CCNP, but I can't get hired in where I am. Well, try and get hired for something else, even with your CCNP, and more than likely you'll find it won't be long before openings will end up happening, and you're just continuing to pursue those. So get a job, continue to pursue whatever your dream job is going to be, and just once you actually get to that point where you can apply for those, move on. There's no hurt in the IT industry if you move from one job to another, because it's not that the very fact that you might be dissatisfied with a company as much as you go, look, I'm really looking to actually get to this level. So even if you're at a company for, let's say, 6 months as desktop support, but you ended up getting hired as a CCNP somewhere else or MCSA somewhere else, nobody goes, oh, he just wasn't happy there, or that company is terrible to work for. It's really not a reflection on you. It's just like, no, they're offering the job that I really wanted, and you can move. Right. And nobody takes that and counts it against you. And even when you go and interview, why did you move from that company? Because this is the job that I want.
Yeah.
And that's why you actually can say that, because you can pursue that without anybody really digging in too much. Unless you're really unhappy, then they'll probably ask you more questions. But overall, though, if you're pursuing the job you want, everybody goes, okay, that's IT. That's exactly what you want to do.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's like a 2 to 4 turnaround time in IT careers, as it is anyway. If you're either going to be in job 2 to 4 years before you're moving on to something different, moving up, and hopefully you're moving in an upward direction and you're not moving laterally, because that'd be terrible. I think if you're moving laterally, then you're probably unhappy with that job.
I agree. I absolutely agree that in this industry, especially right now in this time and age, there's always opportunities to move up. Relatively few opportunities to move laterally. Probably plenty of opportunities to get out. But overall, though, most of the opportunities are actually upward bound, because those people are also moving up, or they're moving into different companies that leave openings everywhere else. There's no doubt, because the government, Cisco, every big vendor that's out there is saying, look, we need a million plus cybersecurity personnel. I'm not talking about experts. They're saying We just need somebody that at least knows security to actually work and can understand the basics, and we'll train them. And every company will do that. They'll offer you training, to make sure that you're actually fit for their company. So never turn down an opportunity to be able to get into this industry if you really want to get into it.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you. That's like perfect advice right there. I love that. So with kind of what you said with, the million, Cisco and government saying that they need that many people, what do you think, aside from security, and you can even touch on the security part for sure, because like that's one thing I tell everybody too, security is going to be big, but, what else do you think is kind of big, right now? Right now, if somebody's kind of looking and saying like, I'm not entirely sure what I want to do, here's a couple areas I'm interested in, but like as far as what you guys are seeing, at IT Pro TV, what do you guys think are some of the biggest fields right now that are going to be expanding?
That's a great question, and the reason why is that we get this question all the time, and there's always answers, right? Security is always a great answer because that is probably the fastest growing field right now. But right next to that, if not maybe even farther along than that, is the very fact that companies over the past several years have switched to cloud technologies and not really told anybody, right? So even though inside the IT training industry and inside the certification industry, cloud is the way to go. Cloud services and understanding that technology, helping companies do that, it's really big. The outside world doesn't understand this idea of moving everything into the cloud. But if you want to actually directly focus in on a couple of them there, it is going to be any type of security focus really around that, and then cloud services too. That includes things like Office 365. It includes Azure. It includes AWS, out there. And I'm trying to think of the Google. I can't remember what the Google one's called, but you name it. That, yeah. So all of those stuff. And that's because even though most people can go, okay, I can follow directions to move part of our infrastructure up there, is getting that entire organization to understand that we're all moving that way and that this is the focus of what's going to happen. And it doesn't mean that you're losing your job, but what it means is more people need to understand why it's so important, because companies have, like I said in the past few years, just silently moved to it. And nobody knows any different because nothing's operated differently. But for example, like right here at IT Pro TV, just about everything that we do in terms of infrastructure is really based in cloud, okay? So there's nothing here on site that if the building were to somehow, get destroyed by a comet coming down and smashing us, well, all of our services are based around the cloud, but it still needs support. It still needs that access. So learning anything that you can about the way that cloud services work is going to be key. But the fastest growing part of that right now is probably things, like I said, the one that directly affects the end user. So Office 365 is killer. It's probably one of the biggest opportunities that you have in the near future if you haven't gotten into it. So you'll probably see that more. And as Azure's infrastructure is just ballooned, it's a gigantic elephant now. That's a highly technical environment. So there's people that are needed even there. But AWS is probably the big 800-pound gorilla in the room. Yeah. That if you want to get into that, that's kind of the way to go. Now, on the hardware side, there are still demands there. But you're probably going to see less and less of a call for that because everything is kind of moving that way where, like, why would we continue to depend on these things? Companies will still do it because of regulations and everything else, but that's going to require less people to actually depend on that, but more people to be able to support end users that are everywhere around the planet, but still needing access to the same services. So I would say cloud technology is kind of the big one that you might see, in doing that. And of course, like everything else, desktop support is still going to be big, not because of the machines, but because people aren't going to understand that interaction into cloud services until somebody comes along and says, all right, here's how you're going to access your daily email. Here's how you're going to do this. Here's what happens, and be able to troubleshoot that. So I don't think desktop support's ever going to go away. So all of those are actually very good. But cloud services and security and IT is pretty much the way to go, or today's buzz term,
Yeah.
cybersecurity,
Yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
cooler term for it. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong; it's awesome. When you say I'm in cybersecurity, everybody's like, "Ooh, nice."
Yeah.
So it's cool. Yeah. So cybersecurity and cloud.
Awesome. Awesome. Let me touch on kind of the desktop support, with the way that maybe you kind of see that, because I don't really see that, going anywhere. I mean, I still think that's
Mhm.
going to be needed, and I still think that's going to be a big career for a lot of people, especially people kind of moving into the field. But people are definitely awfully worried about that, But I was working at a hospital. I just kind of ended that job here a few weeks ago to do this full time. But over there, we started moving a lot of our like laptops and desktops over to Wise terminals, so dummy clients.
Right.
And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. You're still going to need support for that, but those are so easy in the aspect that you just go and swap one of those out. There's no
Mhm.
configuration. All the configuration is done on the server. So you're going to have a lot more of that, I feel like. But what do you feel about that? Do you think you're going to see a lot more companies, like Dell or HP and etc., coming out with more mobile dumb clients?
Yeah. On the terminal side of things, I think that in the hospitals, that's always going to be true, no matter what. It's easy enough to get into that hospital and go, look, this stuff needs to be up, pull another terminal up, plug it in, and replace, and you're ready to go. But the key there that we're going to see in the future is it's not going to be support of things like desktops, because we'll do the same thing. After a while, the desktop price point will end up dropping, and we'll just pull those things out and put another one in
Yeah.
anyways. But what's going to happen though is, because of the move towards mobility, is still continuing to go. It's not going as fast as it was, but things like smartphones and tablets, they're still right there in the wave of the future. So being able to support apps, being able to actually show the customer or the end user, whoever it is, how they access their line of business on that tablet, how they get access to their email on the phone, how they support those devices, securing the wireless that's out there, making sure that they understand the idea of authentication and doing all that. All that's still going to be big time, because there's just too many points of entry that as new people are hired, you hand them a tablet, you hand them a smartphone, go, all right, there you go. Well, they're going to always need someone to call. Like, how am I supposed to get this connected? What app am I supposed to have? Where do I go and get this? So that interaction, right, between the desktop support or the end user support side and the end user is always going to be there. There's never going to be a lack of that, because somebody's always going to have to show somebody new that's coming in how that's done. And even between industries, not everything is going to be done in the same way. So if you move from like a hospital and you go into, whether it's government at some point, or, which is probably not going to depend on wireless too much, but whether you go into another, particular large company where it's different, you're going to see that there's going to be different applications or different formats or different structures and paradigms that you're going to have to learn anyway. So having the ability to interact with humans is going to become more important, even as we're depending on text messaging and email more, because some people are just going to say, I can't follow these instructions. They're not making any sense. You're going to have to send the person there to show them how it's done. So yeah, you're never going to lose that human side of that support. The other thing about it is it's almost immediate, right? You send the person there, something's wrong that's not on their end, they can actually make a call up to the level 2 support, level 3 support, say, no, we're really having an issue here. It's happening to all these people. Well, that's faster than you sending me an email and expecting me to kind of go, okay, I'm going to fix it right away. Well, getting on a phone call, that's kind of the most immediate that says this is a higher priority. So I think you'll always have that element that's there. So people don't have to worry about the desktop support side as far as computers go. It's going to become end user support, which is really hand holding with the person
Yeah.
to show them the technology. And that's really important, because if you don't have end users, there's no need for the network. There's no need for anything else that we're doing if the people can't get access to the data. So it's never something that we should underestimate, and it's a very underappreciated field.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Can I touch a bit on the mobility part that you kind of
Hmm.
mentioned with the, phones and everything? So when I left the hospital, right before I left the hospital, I set up MDM, so mobile device management there. We set up AirWatch.
Right?
That was my project. That was like my baby
Cool.
right before I left. So I got them all up and running with AirWatch. That was our big thing. We rolled out about 80 iPads for all of our doctors to do like their
Hmm.
documentation on and everything, and then we're going to be enrolling all of their smartphones in MDM, so we could have everything secure. If they're accessing our email, we're securing their device. That was the whole premise of the whole AirWatch project there. So, do you think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that in environments? Because that, I feel like it's not talked about very often, but I feel like that is going to be something that's going to happen a lot more frequently, because so many people are bringing in their own devices. There's so much BYOD, and there's going to be, I think, a lot more of the mobile device management happening places. That's my opinion, but I'd love to hear somebody else.
Yeah, I think you're right. The very factor is not that it's going to happen because the industry demands it. It's because it's what the end user expects. So instead of, somebody that's actually used to the way that we live now, right? Tablets, smartphones. I'm probably on my smartphone more for communication than I ever am on my PC anymore, okay? And most people are. They're on their smartphone or they're on their tablet to do so. When they come into work, they want that to be a natural feel as well. So you're going to see more of a need for that device management to happen. And even as the end users don't understand why, because you need to protect your own data, you need to lock that device down if somebody ends up, breaking into it or you leave it somewhere. It's all going to be key in getting that done and showing them, like, here's how you use the device securely. So, but that mobile device management is still, is starting to come on board very much so right now. But you're going to see more and more of it. It's just going to depend on what technology actually ends up being the one that's preferred. Some companies that can't handle everything, they're going to limit it to things like iPads and their iPhones, and go, look, everything else, no. If you want to actually do this, you're going to convert over, and you're going to have to do this. And it's just easier, right? How can you support? I don't even know how many phones there are on the market, but there's going to be one of those devices out of the 800 that's out there that your company is just not going to be able to support. And there's always going to be 10 users out there that are going to go, I love it, I want it, but if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. So even that's going to have to get limited at some time. But I think you're going to see more and more of that, because it's the connected society that we live in, that we depend on that more than desktops today for just about everything that we do. So yeah, I think you're right on there.
Awesome. This is actually something I'd really like to talk about on my YouTube channel, because I'm really passionate about IT. I'm really passionate about just the industry, working in the field and things like that, because I feel like you have to have a passion for it, because it's always advancing so much, and you always have to be learning. Because if you're not learning in this field, I feel like you're just going to be left behind. So you're just going to be stuck in a rut somewhere. So would you want to expand on that at all? Do you feel like you need to have some type of passion for it, or is it just a career to some people and they're just going to do it anyway? You know what I mean?
Right. If you want to succeed at this, you need to have a passion, and you have to make it a hobby. There's just no other way to do this. You're not going to learn to love the new technology that's coming out if it's not a hobby for you and not becoming a passion. Can you survive in this industry and just make it a job? Yes, as long as you don't have to ever do anything outside of that field, and nobody is saying that you'll ever have to do that. Then there are going to be places that you can survive to do that. And I'm trying not to call any particular field out. That's what I'm trying not to do. But it's possible. So for example, right, in terms of you not really needing to learn a ton, if you were to say, Ronnie, you're going to essentially just teach this class for the next 10 years. Okay, well, I could do that and never actually have to do anything else. I might have to learn a few new technologies, but technology is not changing so rapidly that the old technology doesn't always apply. So as I grow along with it, I'm going to learn new things, and we're going to bring that in. But overall, though, if you want to actually continue to advance in your career, the passion has to be there to make you advance, which means you have to stay on the edge of not only going, I'm good at this, but what's the next challenge that I need to actually look at? So for me, okay, I've done desktop support a bit. I've done server management. Cisco stuff. I've done that. All that. Okay, so IT industry, relatively well-rounded in that sense. But I'm not so great in terms of cloud. So I had to kind of really jump in, and I dived, feet first into going, I'm going to learn Office 365. Okay. And that's what I spent essentially a year and a half just trying to do, is to take a look at the bells and whistles as well as all the details inside of Office 365 to actually learn and to do that. And so I started seeing that because the world is heading towards the cloud, I knew that that was a good career path for someone to take, but I knew it was something else that I also needed to learn. And to me, even though at the beginning I was like, I really don't understand why we're doing this, because we could do so much better with just everything being on my own computer and I can take it wherever I want to. But now, after spending some time in it, to me, it's one of the best products that's out there in the world. And it's because I've learned now how good it can be and how diverse it can actually be, and the problems that it helps out in when you actually start to work with it. So I think that that's what you're going to find out, is people that actually go, look, I'm only in it, to just be in this job and I don't worry about career advancement. You're going to find those people, but they're going to be there 10 years from now too. But if you really want to advance, you've got to make it into that passion and into that hobby. So it's what I kind of started out with in this interview. You got to do that. So if you're just trying to figure out, find one element that really interests and piques your interest and learn something about it every day. Read an article, read 2 articles, try and put your hands, to something that you can tweak and manipulate to make it actually make sense to you. And after a while, you'll kind of go, oh, I wonder if I can do that with it. And then you'll continue to learn about it, and you'll try to put yourself in different scenarios. And that's what happened with me in Cisco and learning that. It's not that I couldn't follow a lab book and try and figure that out in terms of certification. But after a while, I kept saying, I wonder what happens if I do this and I do that. And then it became intuitive and natural for me. And then when I realized that there were, other certifications after that, I said, all right, I need to start pursuing that too, because there has to be more that I can learn. And there's just a mountain more that I can learn that, I feel like that every time I think I'm close, to saying, all right, I've got this accomplished, I get a forum post inside of our forums that just makes me go, I didn't even think about that. And it just makes me research more. That's what it does.
That's the kind of attitude I think, everybody should have. You hear something, you see something, and you just want to learn more. You want that knowledge. You just have that thirst. You want to figure it out. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and it can be a double-edged sword in this, because the problem is I now start looking, and there's like 6 different things, that I start looking around at. Like, I need to learn all of them. There's just a limited amount of time in the day when you already have an IT job that you have to, kind of make sure that you're ready for, and then still actually carve out some time to learn about something else that, that you're also piqued in your interest at. So time management is a big part of that, hopefully you'll get better at it, and not like me, where you just go, I'm going to make time for it. I'm going to make time for it. And you might make time for a little bit of it, but you don't tend to make enough time for everything that you want to learn. It's just impossible.
Right.
So you got to find a focus.
Yeah, I agree there. I would wish there was more time in the day. It's terrible. It's terrible. I think you kind of answered like what your favorite thing about IT is networking, or has that changed? I mean, is networking still your favorite, or what's the future look like for Ronnie? What do you see forthcoming for you? It's still going to be networking, or are you liking the cloud?
Yeah. I see that the combination of things, right? Networking is still the future in terms of me wanting to help people that want to get into this industry. And it's what I've taught now for 15 years. Networking essentially is the heart of IT. Without networking, all these applications, they don't communicate with each other. You don't reach servers. You don't communicate, email. You don't do any of that if you don't know networking. So I always have challenged, whether it was my students that were just beginning when I was doing a traditional instructor-led teaching, or even in IT Pro TV, that it really is the heart of it. If you can learn that networking component and you can understand that's going to lead you to every path that you want to go. So I still see that at the foundational level of being very important for me, as well as for anybody wanting to get into the field. In terms of the future, I see more and more that it's going to be in taking a look at the cloud technology that's out there. And we're going to start realizing something which has now started to change my focus and opinion a little bit more. We can't just be pigeonholed to one concept. And the reason why is that technology is developing so rapidly even though Office 365 is good right now for what it does and for the majority of companies, it might be in 2 years that it gets left behind by another development that comes out. So you can't just go, oh no, I've tied my career to Office 365 and that's all I'm ever going to learn. You have to continue to actually kind of look a little bit beyond and go, all right, what's at the horizon? What is coming down next? And for what I'm focusing on is not only about Office 365 and making sure that I learn the new technology, because they're adding that thing like insanely. Every time I turn around, they're like, this has now been added to Office 365. But now it's about, what if you have services in 2 different cloud fronts? Well, what connects them together? And so for me, it's trying to figure out that particular component where now you have a company that has 2 or 3 different cloud services, and they want to use all of them, and they want that to integrate in some way. And what you're going to see at that in the future is going to be something like OpenStack, which is not really, it's out there, okay? And people are pushing towards it. Linux is pushing towards it. Rackspace is definitely, pushing towards it. But I think they're seeing that horizon. Everybody else is kind of like, that's kind of really, it's just another cloud service. Well, it's a cloud service that can communicate between AWS and Azure and everything else. So I think that, to me, at least in the future, if I can find the time and focus, that it's going to be that idea of learning more OpenStack stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's awesome. How'd you get started at IT Pro TV? What led you there?
Well, when it comes down to it, it was the 2 people that started IT Pro TV, Tim and Don. I had worked for them for years already, and at that point, when we first started talking about the concept of it, and they said, here's the commitment that we need right now if you want to be a part of IT Pro TV. And I started to see what they wanted, and I realized that that's what I wanted to do as well, which was to be able to be the instructor that I wanted to be. So, explain in detail, not be limited by the fact that I only had 5 hours or 6.5 hours in a day to get, this massive amount of content into people's brains. And then at the end of the week going, man, I hope they got that, because that was just like shooting information, right at somebody. But to be able to take the time and be able to explain everything that we wanted to, that's what really sold me, is because I realized that in this format, it didn't matter if it took me 5 hours to do it or if it took me 30 hours to do it. I could do that. And as an example of that, right, Don came to me one day and said, we want this to be the best A+ content that we can do. So the first or second time that we actually shot it through when we were doing this, I created an A+ show that was insane. It was 90 hours.
Oh my gosh.
90 hours. And that's because we went over every single detailed topic in the way that I thought, we're not going to miss anything in this show. Okay. So that was insane. I was trying to make sure. That was that way. But then when I started Network Plus, it was 70 hours. But we kind of streamlined that because we realized that there was a lot of redundancy. But overall, though, to show you that they're like, no, if that's what it takes you, that's what it takes you. So that's what really kind of drew me into that. But it's really Tim and Don that kind of set the pacing or the goal and the horizon ahead of us. That said, here's what we believe it's going to be, and if you want to be a part of that, here's what the commitment you'll have to do. So it was never like, you can try it if you want to. They kind of set that goal and said, Ronnie, do you want to be a part of this? And I said, absolutely. And when I jumped on board, I just jumped in, as well, because I was already teaching at night, and I was coming in during the day, 2 to 3 days a week, starting to record the content at the very beginning of IT Pro TV. So there were 3 or 4 days in the week I was working 15, hours a day, and then, finally after about, I'm assuming 6 months to a year, then it was like, all right, IT Pro TV, you're full time now, and I was like, great. So but the dedication is not so much about me; it's about what I believed IT Pro TV could become, and we're starting to experience the fruits of that even now. We're always amazed when we get people that write back to us and say, we're so glad that we found you because we do believe it's the best. And I think it's because we always think that it could have been better. Right. So when we finish a show, and even though I'm like, man, that was absolutely the best thing I could have done, there's always a day later, like, crud, I could have done that too. a week later, when it's 6 months from now, I don't even want to watch the show because I think it was so bad. And it's not because it's bad, okay? But it's that way where you're constantly going, I should have done that better, or I could have done that better. And that's because it's part of the culture that's instilled in us. It's not that we just do enough, it's that we can always do better.
And that's why you guys are the best at what you do. That right
Right.
there, that attitude right there is why IT Pro TV is the best at what they do. Because you
Hmm.
guys always have that mentality that you can do better, that you want to do better. And it
Right.
shows because I think some of the stuff that I've watched, like the earlier stuff to the stuff that you guys do now, it's just like, I think the value is increased tenfold. So
Yeah.
I love it. You know what I mean? And
No, no,
not that the early stuff was bad. I don't mean that it
yeah.
was bad. It's just that I think you guys have just crafted yourselves in such a way that like, all right, you're perfecting it every time you do a new show or every time you do a new episode, and it could be a day later. I would imagine
Hmm.
even you're perfecting it. You're just perfecting what you guys are doing, and it's fantastic. I love it. So
Yeah, it's definitely the truth. It's like I told you, if I were to go back and try and watch some of the stuff we did even a year ago now, some of the stuff I did, I kind of cringe.
oh yeah,
And it's not because at that point I thought it was bad, but I now look and go, here's all the stuff I should have also included in, or here's the stuff I should have done better. And that's the key, is that, it's that culture that we've instilled, is that we can always work better and we can always work with honor and actually do that. So that's part of why we're constantly refreshing our content right now, is not that the shows aren't good, because as I watch them, and these shows I did with Don's not in the ones that I'm doing coming up. It's a high bar for me to follow. I mean, it really is. So it's not that I'm nervous because of that, but it's just that I want to make the best show that I can, not to match up to Don, but because it's the best show that I can do. So I think that that's what connects us to people that really do want to go, I want to see the best one that's out there. So, because they see us trying to strive to do that.
yep, absolutely, and it shows. It really does. So I love it. I really do. I appreciate it. I know my viewers appreciate it. So it's great. So with that, what's your favorite thing about working at IT Pro TV? Besides like the coffee shop that's right there, and I think they have beer and stuff there, which is pretty cool. But
Yeah. Um, I the favorite thing for me is that I get to work with the most talented people that I've ever worked with my entire life. And I mean it. It's amazing. Every day we come in, and it's not that we don't have jobs to do, but if I have an issue and a problem, and I've thought about it even like overnight, and it kept me up all night, I can come in and I can talk to somebody and they're like, well, think about it this way. And it's amazing. It's like, that's insane. I didn't even think about that. And then being able to do like the shows that we do, and then to realize, that around me are the most talented people I've ever seen. And I've got to work with a few external subject matter experts, like Todd Lamley, right? And I'm not dropping his name but he's been doing this for a long time. And when I think about someone like him, and then I take a look at our culture around it, and he's a good guy, but I only get to work with him for a week. But I still would rather work here every single day of the week
right,
than to just go, okay, I have one chance to actually meet Todd Lamley. It would be coming here every day to work, because the people are by far not only the most talented, they're nice. It's a great work environment. There's relatively little drama that ends up happening around us, and they're just cool people. Every single one of them are some of the coolest people you ever meet.
yeah. Oh, I agree. I definitely agree. I mean, I think I met just about everybody that was there when I was down there last year, and everybody was awesome. It was,
Yeah.
like I said it earlier, it was the best experience ever.
Yeah.
It was so cool. But I don't, you guys have so many people there behind the scenes that
Right.
they don't get enough credit.
No,
You know what? I tell you that right. They like Nate. Like he doesn't get enough credit. He's a good
definitely.
guy. I hope he hears that.
Yeah.
But no, there's so many people there that do great things, and that you guys just have a great environment. So that's awesome. That's good that everybody. I think everybody probably has that same feeling, because I've talked to quite a few people there, even some of the salespeople and marketing and all that, and I think everybody has that same kind of feeling. So that's awesome. That's definitely cool. So the last thing I guess I'll ask you before we go, and this is I ask everybody is, do you have any questions for me?
Oh, well, you posted on Twitter that you were naming some servers after us
Yep.
here. So I'm assuming my name also got kicked down the list a little bit further, as there's actually other people that are much more talented than I am.
Oh, it's not based on talent.
So yeah, looking forward to that. But have you chosen your next one yet?
Well, we got Don Pizzette and we have
Right.
Daniel Laurie right now, and
Hmm.
then the next one hasn't been decided yet. So
Oh, there you go.
probably be
Yeah.
you. It might be
Oh
that
well,
might be that 2003 server. You never know. We could
that's
spin
right.
one of those
If
up.
you, yeah, yeah, if you're setting that up, it is strictly for demonstration purposes.
Oh yeah.
Don't use that in your environment.
Oh my gosh, no, that would be terrible. There's still people, there's still businesses out there that are running 2003 servers, though.
Yeah, that. Yeah, no, there's no doubt. I know a few of those companies. They're
Well,
still running it.
the
It's just stable.
the,
That's the key.
hospital I worked
Yep.
at had 2003 servers still. They had about 6 of them out of
Yeah.
like 178 servers. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's terrible, but I mean, if if it works, I guess.
It's hard to
But
bring down an operational whatever component
is.
that's there and it's still running,
It is.
and you're like,
It is.
why mess with it when it's
Yeah.
still there?
Oh, well, and there's so many different services that are attached to it, and then you have like different tasks that are running on another server, and you're trying to find where everything is running from and what shares are running. It's just
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, we've tried many times to take a couple of them down because they've been around for so long that some of the sysadmins that were there before just aren't there anymore. So we there's just like this kind of like drop in information. We don't know.
Hmm.
We don't know what's running. We don't so
Right.
we try to take it down, and then something stops working, and we're like, oh my gosh, forget it. We
Yeah.
give up. So
Yeah, I did that with one company where they said we haven't used it in 4 years, so I just turned the server off. And the great thing is nobody noticed.
yeah,
So I just said,
That's-
well, I'm just going to turn it off and see who complains about it. So they literally hadn't actually hit it in 4 years. So
that's
I
perfect.
turned it off and they didn't notice. And I was like, if somebody asks, just turn the button back on. But if not, just leave it because there's
Yeah,
no
right.
use for it. So,
Absolutely. That's
yeah,
awesome.
sometimes you'll run into those lucky spots,
Yeah.
but it was, yeah. But if they're dependent on it, you got to leave it going.
For
Yep.
sure. Yeah. So part of the thing that with what I'm doing with the servers and all that, like on my channel, is I'm just running through like real basic stuff, kind of showing people some of those basic things, and then I kind of say, if you guys want to learn more, IT Pro TV, they're gonna show you all the more advanced stuff and help you get certified. But I want to help people
Yeah.
know the more of the business side of things. Here's what you might run into when you're in a business, because I don't feel like there's a lot of places out there that go over that.
Right.
Here's a business scenario that you're going to run into. That's all. I mean, that's all I really had for you. So I really appreciate your time coming on and answering these questions for not only myself, but everybody's going to be watching this, because it's really great to have a background on who's working over there at IT Pro
All right.
TV and what you guys are doing. Because I think, like I said, you guys are doing great things, and I think everybody should know that. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, Zach.
Yep. You have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too. Take it easy.